Welcome to our fifth and final episode for the 2021 State of Security Operations video series, where we cover insights from the new State of Security Operations report available at www.cyberres.com/stateofsecops. The report offers a snapshot of global security operations in 2021, pulling from the experiences of over 500 security operations executives and decision makers. Over the course of this series, we've been interviewing key SecOps experts from CyberRes about their thoughts on the report. This week, we'll be interviewing CyberRes's Chief Security Strategist, Rob Aragao. Rob brings over 20 years of experience focused on cybersecurity and having previously held leadership roles at organizations such as HPE, CenturyLink, Siemens, and ReliaQuest. He leads cybersecurity and technology risk initiatives with global organizations, emphasizing approaches that enable appropriate alignment of cybersecurity with business objectives and desired outcomes. Rob provides thought leadership and insight regarding the ever-changing global threat landscape and is a frequent speaker and panel member, presenting at conferences such as Black Hat, the International Conference on Cybersecurity, and has been featured in Dark Reading and the Wall Street Journal. Very excited to have him for this interview. Thanks for joining us today, Rob.
Thanks for having me, Preston.
So just to start things off, lots of the questions in the report had forward-looking aspects about plans for investment, technology acquisition, and more. There was also a section in the executive summary that discussed the SOC journey from the mid-90s to today and to what we can expect in the future. So based on the survey results and your own insights into the SOC journey, what are your key predictions for the future of SecOps over the next few years?
So I think there's several of them, right? So when you think about some of the things that were called out in the report, some of the findings, which I think are very relevant, the topic of attack surface management comes into play for obvious reasons. I think that's a bit of a deeper topic that we need to get our arms wrapped around, which is kind of understanding really what our assets are overall. And now that they've extended out to multiple facets, whether it's cloud-based, whether it's different types of IoT devices, as an example, kind of getting arms wrapped around that. I think the advancements in AI and the combination with SOAR type of capabilities are starting to come to fruition and show value. I think that will continue to really drive better outcomes for organizations, because we know we need more of the automation, more of the machine learning capabilities to drive faster and accelerated detection response capabilities in general. But I think there's three higher level themes overarching. There's been this concept of the data lake for a long time, so I'll kind of refer to it as the cyber lake. And my principle on that is we just need to do a better job in understanding that we really have to have this data lake aspect that allows a better ecosystem of the different tools an organization will have that needs to be leveraged in what we're trying to do within the SOC. And no matter when and where we need to pivot kind of a different tool in, that's fine. Let's have that layer of understanding what the data is and how our teams can better leverage that data is one of the areas I think we need to better focus our attention on. Another area is really driven around kind of this concept of how do we drive threat hunting into a better, more value to the organization. And to me, I think, again, as you look at some of the concepts around threat hunting in general, it's kind of been this outlier. I think we're going to start seeing much more value baked into what comes out of those themes. But top level, the biggest one to me is, and this is probably 2 to 3 years at least out, is the true fusion center model. And so we've heard about fusion centers for some time, but I think it's coming to a fruition where, from a business sense, the organization understands that cyber is a key area. They've been looking at what they can do within the SOC. How do you advance that to take into account other areas of physical security aspects? So in the financial sector, for example, there's been a beginning in shifting towards saying, let's take the cyber, right, the digital with the physical attributes and bring them back in together for our overarching security center capabilities. That fusion of data, though, is what's critical. And so what I mean by that is all of the things we're doing from a cyber perspective are great and will continue to evolve, but we need to take some of these different signals, some different capabilities that we can get from things like social media. And what are people talking about out there? What are indicators that maybe something is coming our way from a cyber perspective or even a physical attribute? And tying that back in will have more intelligence for us to be able to be preemptive in the capabilities that our SOC can deliver to our business, but also, again, much more value-oriented across all the different types of information coming in and better determining what potential impacts there are out there for us.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Well, another topic from the executive summary was the importance of modernization, cyber resiliency, and a few other frameworks that connect back to SOC maturity. So what are your thoughts on those principles, and where do you think SOCs should focus on maturing over the coming year?
Yeah, so there's been many different maturity models, right, that organizations have kind of tried to measure their SOC against. And I think, you always hear about people, process, and technology, which is critical. Absolutely the elements that you should measure. But the fourth element that kind of continuously seems to get brought up, but really not measured, is what's the business impact. So I think that's a key attribute of, as we look forward, right? And if you take into account like the cyber resiliency framework, there's 4 goals, very simple, 4 goals that the cyber resiliency models really drive at, right? And that's first understanding what the key assets are to your organization, getting your arms wrapped around that. Kind of mentioned that a little earlier, right? It's critical to understand what's most impactful to the business. So what are those digital assets? How do we put in place the capabilities to identify different things that may be occurring that are coming their way? I talk about that as foundational, right? You need to put in content that is looking at specific kind of capabilities and support those that look for the incidents that may occur. That's just straight foundational kind of blocking and tackling that should be in place for your SOC in general. You elevate that into the business principles, which are understanding, again, what are those particular assets, right? That involves conversations with different line of business owners. That's also where the role of the BSO comes into play now. And so understanding what those, again, key assets are to the particular lines of business, bring that back. And now we can focus our attention on what else do we need to put in place to identify attacks that may be coming the way of more impact negatively to our organization. And so the second principle or goal within the cyber resiliency framework is, right, being able to minimize the impact of those types of attacks, those types of incidents to the organization. So again, if we have done a good job continuously understanding what those assets are and putting the content around that to support visibility, we're going to do a good job in being able to minimize that and then recover quickly from it, which is the third goal. And then the fourth goal of that framework from a cyber resiliency perspective is driving at learning and evolving. So think about that. If you take the elements of what we've gone through, even from the hunt side of the house, everything that they're identifying as something new, something that might be sitting and has been dwelling in our environment that then they hand over to the SOC analyst to go further investigate, that's fine. But take those findings and tie them back into the actual capabilities of what you're going to be looking for moving forward. Because more likely than not, it's going to continue to happen. So that's the evolution, that fourth element of a cyber resiliency framework. But modeling it together, it's really, again, putting the business sense over the top of what we're trying to drive the outcomes of the SOC. So we're not just the tactical aspects, but more the strategic alignment to the business objectives is the core focus.
Great, thank you. Well, another topic from the report, it discussed outsourcing. So what are your thoughts about the findings relative to insourcing versus outsourcing? And as far as the results came, were those surprising to you?
Yeah, so I don't think it was as surprising given what we've just gone through over the past year plus now with the pandemic, right? And the timing of the actual survey going out there. So it's this pivot of people needing to say, okay, what we're used to within our organization to have our own team members, as an example, the in-house model, in place, working side by side typically in support of our SOC capability, basically overnight went away. And now you have to pivot and say, can I ensure I give my resources, my people, the tooling, the remote secure access into the environment to continue to operate as they did before. And many organizations realized that they had a gap at that point in time. So I think, seeing this number, I think on average, most of the different elements and functions from a outsourcing capability for cybersecurity, they averaged around like 70% of keeping it in-house and then pivoting to a hybrid approach. And I think it was pretty even, about 35% each. Yep. When you think about that, right, what's next? So I think everyone's kind of getting to a point where we've kind of gotten to the point of where we are today. We've facilitated the need to react very quickly what's occurred over the past year and a half now at this point in time. And now let's review and assess, where do we go next? Do we continue this model? Do we do more, right? Do we continue to maybe bring on more of the managed services capabilities to augment some of the needs we have, right? We know there's a skill shortage. It's not going away. Automation, right? Machine learning helps us there. But these other service capabilities can also help us. And so what can we do? We can actually augment that by saying, take the low-hanging fruit elements that we're not too concerned about, that are pretty kind of straightforward, and give it to them. But the other side of the equation, which is no matter what, no one will know your business as good as you, right? You live it day in, day out. You can translate that into kind of what I was talking about before. What is it we need to focus our attention on to have better visibility that may be impacting our business from a security operational focus? And the business changes so quickly now, right? This digital transformation effort means each and every business we're dealing with today has moved into a model of digitally oriented, which means you better be agile, right? Because if you're not agile enough from a business sense, the competition will take you on, and overnight, they may consume your customer base for a good majority of that. So we need to be thinking about how we take into account the elements of where can we better use the managed services capabilities that are out there. I look at it as where there's kind of that low-hanging fruit, managed firewalls, managed web gateways, things that push that over, right? That's pretty simple stuff. Go get the resources that you bring in-house to focus on the higher value elements and allow them to be driving more resiliency for your business by focusing on those areas that are going to be much more impactful.
Great. Yeah, I think that's an awesome insight. Well, lastly, having seen the completed 2021 report, what else do you wish you could ask SOC executives? In other words, what new topics and questions would you like to see in the 2022 State of Security Operations report next year?
Good question, Preston. So I think, first off, the report is excellent, right? It's very holistic in the thinking and the type of questioning, global scale, vertically oriented. So I think it gives us all a very good foundation, understanding of kind of what's happening out there in this space. What are some of the different areas people have continued to invest in, some of the new areas as well that they're looking at. But when you think about kind of what would I ask in some of the different aspects of the survey going into next year, where are there the different opportunities for driving better efficiencies? So if I'm going to have a conversation with a SOC executive, SOC leader in a financial services organization, retail, healthcare, it doesn't matter. I want to know, where do you feel there's opportunities that we can better improve? And I don't mean about AI and machine learning capabilities and so on. I'm talking about literally like, let's look at how your SOC analysts work. What's the day in the life for them? How many screens are they looking at? How quickly can they actually detect something that's going on that's of relevance versus these false positives that are coming our way? And where do we then identify the abilities to drive better efficiencies, whether it's technology-oriented, process-oriented, what have you, but measuring those facets of improvement within the SOC from multiple facets of technology, the process, the people, the education aspect of the people as well, I think are critical to think about. And then another thing that I think sometimes kind of either gets assumed or forgotten about is, what about looking at the data sources relative to what's happening at the application layers, as well as the identities of our actual users, our third-party relationships. So if you look at the application layer, right, we know that that's the method and the means of how the attackers are ultimately getting in and through to the environment to get to the data that they want. So let's look at better information value coming out of the application logs, the sources that are out there, and have more visibility to understand that that application is actually causing us an area of concern that we need to plug that gap and identify where things may be coming into the environment from. The other aspect in the identity equation, we've done some of these things for a little while with kind of UAVA, but really more concerted efforts of how do we leverage the analytics ability of what's abnormal user behavior, but do so on an ongoing basis as part of kind of the identity access management side of the house, meaning that as we've authenticated, validated an individual into the environment to work on the given applications to deliver their business objectives and what their role brings to the organization, what things are we seeing? What type of behavior is happening once we've authenticated and validated it? Are there things of concern? Flag those things back up. So I think those are kind of elements I would also include, is saying what's happening at the application tier, what's happening about tying in the identities. And the identities don't just mean people. Right? They actually extend into IoT devices, which again, huge scale, huge problem area for us to be able to solve for as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that'd be very interesting. And part of the reason I asked that, just for the audience to know, we actually have a survey. We'd like to hear what you all would like to also see next year. To help us shape the 2022 State of Security Operations Report, we've got a SurveyMonkey link. We'll put that in the description of this video. It's a short 3-question survey. We'd love to develop our next report based on the feedback of our readers and on what you find interesting and want to learn more about. So check out that survey in the description. But yeah, that's all for our questions. So thank you again for joining us today, Rob, and for answering our questions. I'm very excited to see what's in store for SecOps in the coming year and to see how companies continue to evolve their security approaches. So for those who would like to learn more about the State of Security Operations, we recommend you access the full report at www.cyberres.com/stateofsecops. We'll also link that in the description. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more SecOps content. So thanks again, Rob. And to everyone watching, it's been a great video series, and we hope you've been able to benefit from it. Have a great day.
Preston, take care.